Our next guest has just written a very important paper for the CIS, which we will chat about. And of course, he is already very, very well known to outsiders viewers from last year, and he is a popular columnist in both The Spectator Australia and The Daily Telegraph. Associate Professor Salvatore Babones, where the hell have you been, mate?
I've been vacationing in Italy. It's been beautiful.
So you're on sabbatical over there?
I am. I'm not really on vacation. I'm writing
your next book?
Writing my next book in Rome.
Quickly, let's get a plug for your last book.
The follow-up to the new authoritarianism.
Yep.
Trump populism and the tyranny of experts. It's we'll be talking about it on Alan Jones' Sky show Tuesday night.
Fantastic. Yeah. Excellent. So, New Authoritarian was regarded last year as one of the top four by the Wall Street Journal.
Best book on politics 2018.
Now, more importantly, you're sitting with your editor at The Spectator and your opinion editor at The Daily Telegraph, so you better be bloody good. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
My ambition is to be a failed, useless academic. I think that's what you called us. My ears were burning.
So, Salvatore, okay, let's talk about the four ponies of the apocalypse, which is your cover story a couple of weeks
ago. Direct from New York, I have one of the ponies for you. Join your collection.
Very own Alexandra
Ocasio-Cortez, known for the green.
She's going to feel pretty...
known for the Green New Deal. She's right up the outsider's alley, and I think you should be inviting her to Australia. Look how she towers over Donald Trump.
Oh, my God. This is going to send people into apoplexy, I think.
Author of the Green New Deal.
Well, I think she might have to stand to one side.
Let's put her all the way over to the left here, where she belongs. Yeah.
We've got a Hall of Fame. Maybe we can start a Hall of Shame.
A Hall of Shame over there on James's side.
I'll curate them.
And I should also point out, we have a Golda Meir here, which Gideon Rosner has given us, a little Golda Meir down there. So we're doing well on our dogs. Now, Salvatore, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and the four women known as the Squad. Tell us about them.
Well, Alexandria, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, trip over the word, Ayanna Pressley are the four members of the Squad in the United States. They have been vocal in accusing Donald Trump of racism, and I think they've gotten copped a bit of it themselves. They actually accuse their Democratic leaders of racism in the party, and the party leadership has panicked by being endorsed by Donald Trump and defended by Donald Trump. So it's been a media circus in the United States.
It was quite a genius move from him, wasn't it? Because they were going after Nancy Pelosi, saying she's racist. He came out in defence of her, and then the Democrats had to sort of en masse stand with these four women who are fringe-dwelling in their views and policies. And it really just weakens the Democrats, doesn't it?
And for three of them, it's not even clear what race they are. So there's a lot of narrative over racism. Everyone wants to be a minority when it comes to racism, because then you're protected against any criticism. Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is from Puerto Rico, but is she a black Puerto Rican? That's for her to say. I can't make that judgment. Ilhan Omar is from Somalia, thank you. And is she a black Somali or an Arab Somali? Again, that's very hard to say. Rashida Tlaib is you're going to help me with all the origins. I'm tripping up on TV.
But I mean, doesn't really matter. They're all women of colour.
What is color, right? I mean, am I a man of color? I'm from southern Italy and Greece. In Australia, I'd be I don't know if can I say WOG on TV.
You just did. You just said it. But I mean, like with this whole thing with the Squad, though, we had this whole business this week where Donald Trump got in trouble for his in trouble in quotes, but for his comments about why Jews shouldn't vote for the Democrats, and yet you had the Democrats who couldn't wind up pushing through a resolution to condemn anti-Semitism in response to Ilhan Omar's blatantly anti-Semitic tweets and comments and anti-Jewish statements. So they have their own very serious problems, I would think, wouldn't you say?
Well, the Democratic Party has problems, and they've been boxing themselves into a corner in the debates because everyone has to be holier than thou with the core progressive anti-establishment group within the Democratic Party who is now taking over the party. It's Donald Trump had disrupted the Republican Party in 2016, and now these people are disrupting the Democratic Party in 2020. Honestly, I think it's great for U.S. politics. What we need is a clear choice a clear choice between a right Republican, a left Democrat, and then the voters can really make up their minds.
And this is something that you talk about in New Authoritarianism in your book, your excellent book, but this idea that there is kind of an expert elite class that sits over party politics and is basically rebels against anybody who disrupts. And can you talk about that a bit?
Oh, sure. When people say what we want is consensus politics of, the elites on both parties talking to each other and compromising, I say that's as anti-democratic as you
Absolutely.
can get. What you need is a clear choice. You need to be able to throw the bums out if you don't like what they're doing. If both sides are saying the same thing, you don't have a choice. I mean, just look in the debate in Australia over climate change. This was supposedly 2019, the climate change election. Well, if it was the climate change election and if climate change lost, then you'd expect a reversal of policy.
Absolutely. Hear, hear. I couldn't agree more. Now, tell us about our universities, Salvatore. You're obviously at University of Sydney.
Right.
Your paper for the CIS is basically about what has become a big hot topic at the moment in the last couple of weeks, is the degree to which outfits like the Confucius Institute, which have now been kicked out of New South Wales schools, by the way, is it correct to use the word infiltration? Tell us.
No, it's not. It's not correct to use infiltration. It's correct to say dependence, right? Because it's not the Chinese who are infiltrating our universities. It's our universities who are inviting in the Chinese because we want the Chinese money. It's all about the Chinese money. China, Australia is not high on China's radar screen for the next communist takeover, right? What the problem is that Australian universities have become extraordinarily dependent on Chinese money. I mean, at University of Sydney, more than 25% of our students are from the People's Republic of China, a quarter of the entire student body. That means that Chinese students pay about a quarter of all of the revenue of the University of Sydney. Now, that's not a quarter of the tuition revenue. A quarter of the total revenue of the University of Sydney. Same at UNSW.
So when we talk about this, then you're saying that,
up on the screen
that the issue is not so much about ideological control, but just simply that the exposure to a change in the fortunes of the Chinese economy will wind up hurting these universities really badly.
Of course it could, but it also means there's got to be sensitivity about Chinese opinion because if a quarter of your students and a quarter of your money are coming from China,
does that mean that professors then have trouble talking about what we sometimes call the 3 Ts: Tibet, Tiananmen Square, and Taiwan?
No. We have complete freedom of speech at the university, and that's always been upheld. And I'm very proud of that we can say what we want.
Yep.
The problem is that the administrative level, that people get nervous, of course, about anything that could piss off China or anything that could result in a reduction in Chinese student numbers. And we're taking an enormous risk that there will be an economic collapse in China, that all of our students will go home.
Well, that could explain the Vice-Chancellor coming out and saying that this move against these institutes, these Chinese institutes, it's bringing in the spectre of white Australia policy. That was the Vice-Chancellor at Sydney University, which I think is a very way of framing it.
I was very surprised that Michael Spence said that. He's generally been very gracious in response to this paper, which has been very critical of my own university. But to call opposition to increased student immigration a return to white Australia, that might be true if we had 1% Chinese and we're talking about going up to 2. We have 25% and are talking about going up to 50. That's not creating a white university.
Absolutely. And also on the education side, Salvatore, you tell us about, those examples where you've got students who really can't speak English, who are studying things, and then don't have the skills required for the level of studying they're supposed to be doing.
It's a serious problem, and it's not the majority of our Chinese students. It's a minority of them, and it's the minority, I believe, who come in through our foundations programs. The foundations programs allow students to come in with lower test scores than they would ordinarily be able to have to get into universities. And this is not just Sydney. This is Sydney, ANU, UNSW, UTS, the whole shebang.
So in doing that, are they taking places from other students or not?
No, we're simply expanding the number of places.
Right.
Our classes are bigger than ever. We're not turning away any Australian students.
Right.
We're just jamming in more and more Chinese, and the next target is Indian students.
But does that wind up then creating an impact on campus life if you've got more crowded university halls and more crowded lecture halls and so on? Does that affect the teaching potentially, that there's not enough one-on-one, or it's more depersonalized and campus life changes?
Well, one-on-one is long gone.
Yeah, yeah, well, I know, yeah.
What's really changing in campus life, and this may give you some heart, is that Chinese students have been challenging labor and Greens in student politics. And actually...
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Well,
50%.
all of our elections at the University of Sydney for postgraduate students, for undergraduate students, for University Student Union have been won by Chinese students this year.
Interesting.
And they have completely decimated the Green and Labor parties. And they're two different Chinese parties.
Every cloud.
And don't call this communist. There are two competing Chinese student parties who have split the vote. So this is Chinese students learning democracy at the University of Sydney.
I want
That's
to
good.
quickly ask you about Italy. How do you see the political scene there? Will Italy get out of the EU? How do you see that?
Well, Italy's not leaving the EU, but Italy has its own Stop the Boats program. Matteo Salvini, who just resigned as an interior minister, has had a very aggressive campaign inspired by Australia to stop migrant boats coming to Italy. And it's not migrants themselves are turning around. The current controversy is over a Spanish boat run by a Spanish NGO that has been sitting off an Italian island for a couple weeks. The Italians won't let them in. Finally, Spain is sending a ship to come get them. But they've been demanding that Italy take in immigrants from Africa who are arriving on boats run by NGOs.
These are not
really.
People
These are not people smugglers.
These are charity organizations.
The people smugglers are the charity organizations.
Wow.
And Rome is inundated with migrants who desperately want to get. They don't want to stay in Italy. They want to get to Germany, Sweden, the great welfare states of Northern Europe. And the train stations are packed with them. There are beggars everywhere. It really is quite a scene. And it's not the Italians who are the racists. You know, I was on a train from Italy to Austria. There's supposed to be no borders in the European Union. Well, the Austrian border guards got on the train. They're walking through. Get out your passports. They didn't even ask to see mine. Why? Because I'm white. It's the Austrians and the French border guards who are the racists, not the Italians themselves.